Hello, people, and we have an entire country committing to daily buying Bitcoin. That's right. Unfortunately, that country is very small. In fact, it is El Salvador. And it's, of course, with President Bakuli. Now, let's not forget this president is extremely popular in El Salvador because he got rid of the gangs and the crime. Now, to do it, he had to throw everyone with a tattoo in jail. But hey, at least he got rid of crime, right? So that's a plus. At least in El Salvador, it is a plus. Because just because you threw a couple of 100,000 innocent people in jail, that's worth the price of getting rid of the gangs, because the gangs were really, really bad in El Salvador. And he has a very, very high approval rating, so people actually were okay with what he did. Now he's actually letting some of those innocent people out, but he's keeping a tight lid on everything, and other South American countries do wish to follow his example. And he says that he will purchase Bitcoin daily until King Crypto becomes unaffordable with fiat currencies. Hopefully it doesn't blow up in his face. And I think this just puts more buying pressure on Bitcoin. Obviously, El Salvador is not going to purchase nearly as much as BlackRock or Fidelity. And they're allocating something like less than 1% of their budget to buy Bitcoin. But 1% of a country's budget is still richer than you or I. So they're buying plenty of Bitcoin out there. And maybe other countries will see this as well. So basically, the president has reaffirmed the country's commitment to its daily Bitcoin acquisition program. On Friday, he posted on X, the number one Bitcoin a day program is just deposited today's Bitcoin. This continues until Bitcoin becomes unaffordable with fiat currencies. We've decided to transfer a big chunk of our Bitcoin to a cold wallet, which is a very, very good idea, by the ways, and store that cold wallet in a physical vault within our national territory. So basically, he moved it to a Ledger, Trezor, Giant Chromebook, whatever, and he put that in a safe lock so no one can actually steal it. And this continues until Bitcoin becomes unaffordable with fiat currencies. Maybe that will actually happen one day. Maybe Bitcoin will fall apart. We don't really know. But this guy is super popular in his home country, and his home country is going to continue to buy Bitcoins every day. Just a little bit of buying pressure at a time, folks. That's all it takes to slowly creep up. And of course, earlier this month, El Salvador transferred $400 million in Bitcoin to a safer storage option known as a cold wallet. That's all they have right now, $400 million. Not a lot. BlackRock buys that like literally in 3 days. But still, every little bit helps. And like I said, other countries might get in on it as they see El Salvador making more and more money. And obviously, it is a better store of value than US dollars right now. US dollars aren't really a store of value. They're more of a medium of exchange. And people realize that Bitcoin isn't really much of a medium of exchange right now. Of course, being Bitcoin around $70,000, it's well above their buy-in price, and they're committing to buy even more of it. They're kind of like a mini Michael Saylor. I know it's sad speaking of a country as a mini Michael Saylor, but that's just the way it is. Rich institutions in America have way more money than most countries out there, so El Salvador can be a mini Michael Saylor, but still pretty cool that an entire country has committed to buying Bitcoin every day. In other news, the SBF case, prosecutors want 40 to 50 years for SBF and $11 billion judgment or $11 billion fine. And I think that's fair. Obviously, like SBF wants a maximum of a 6-year sentence. I think they will settle somewhere in between and there will be a fine, maybe not $11 billion. I think he'll end up getting 20 to 30 years. He could have gotten over 100 years. So like SBF asked for a maximum sentence of 6.5 years, but that is way too light for him. Think about it. I think he's going to land somewhere between Elizabeth Holmes and Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff basically got 150 years, which basically was life. He died in jail. Elizabeth Holmes got about 10 or 11 years. He'll probably end up somewhere in between. 40 to 50 is a good number. His parents obviously don't want that. They say like Sam made an honest mistake, and he has so much to offer the world. But I don't know, since he scammed so many people, I'm not really sure how much he actually has to offer the world, except for more scams, obviously. And obviously, he's not very repentant for what he's done, because he doesn't really see him as have done anything wrong. That was really, really evident in his trial. And if you let him out, he'll probably do the same thing again. So prosecutors are not asking for the maximum. They're asking for 40 to 50 years in jail. And they're also asking for $11 billion fine. Now that he lost like $80 billion, it might seem low, but $11 billion is more than he'll ever be able to pay. The 116-page government sentencing memorandum submitted to Judge Lewis Kaplan on March 15th recounts Bankman-Fried's activities in detail, focusing on 5 points: his scheme to make illegal political contributions, that's one, and he actually came up with that himself. He's like, I did dark money gifts to politicians. They didn't know that until he admitted it, and then they researched it and found it was true. Focus on that's one of them. His attempt to bribe Chinese government officials, his banking misconduct, his attempts to deflect blame, and various obstructions of justice. So he is in for some serious stuff, and I think he's going to get way more than 6 years. Like I said, I think the judge won't give 40 to 50, but he might give 20 to 30. 2 to 3 decades in jail is a grand payment for what he did. He probably won't get out until he's 60. And, you know, he could have avoided all this by not co-mixing the funds for FTX and Alameda, but he didn't really see what was wrong with that. And, of course, he was too stubborn not to do it. And he did some really bad stuff, and now he has to pay. And the prosecutor said the defendant has failed to make take genuine responsibility for his role in the collapse of FTX and his loss of customer funds. So Sam Bankman-Fried, like throughout this whole process, didn't actually think it was his fault, and that's going to up his sentence, because like the point of these punishments is to teach people a lesson, and he was not taught a lesson. 500 roundhouse kicks to the face as well. Maybe not though. So it's going to be subject to several enhancements due to the severity of his crimes. The document continued, and they compared him repeatedly to Bernie Madoff. However, like Bernie Madoff, I think was more connected, and he used those connections to bad ends, so he's not going to get the same thing as Bernie Madoff. But with the 7 charges that he was actually found guilty of, things do not look very good for him. And I think he's going to go to the slammer for a very, very long time. I would guess 30 years, but your guess is as good as mine, and the judge is definitely not going to let him off easy. I don't think any of his political friends are really going to speak up for him, because he is politically excessively toxic right now. So that's the deal with SBF. And in a surprise twist, big U.S. firms, especially in manufacturing, are flocking to the metaverse. Now, I don't really know why manufacturing firms would actually be, and other firms would be investing in the metaverse. I mean, can't they just do like Zoom chats or something? I suppose they want like metaverse meetings and to scheme things in the metaverse, but I'm not exactly sure why they would spend so much money. But there is a rising number of manufacturing firms in the United States are shifting their focus to the industrial metaverse to tackle complex challenges across the production cycle, including World Economic Forum. And it seems like the WEF meeting has spurred a lot of this metaverse talk. It's not talking about getting people to live in the metaverse, but it's more like, you know, the jobs and the companies, they're going to resolve problems in the metaverse. The WEF outlined that 92% of U.S. manufacturing executives are exploring various ways of implementing the metaverse into their own firms. So they're going to have like virtual meetings and I guess virtual setups, and that will help with reality, I suppose. I'm not exactly sure. And this does stem from the COVID-19 pandemic. People want to work remotely, so I guess the metaverse definitely does help in that particular regard. This has forced the need for manufacturing companies to find ways to speed up production cycles while also increasing efficiency and cost effectiveness. So like, obviously, like if you have the metaverse, it requires less office space, and you can do a lot of things in the metaverse that don't require as much cost. The report emphasized how different companies are using digital twin technology, utilizing virtual models to represent physical objects. And that could definitely save a lot of money. You don't actually have to produce the physical object. Mercedes-Benz is also using the platform to design manufacturing assembly facilities. So you can basically just blueprint everything out in the metaverse, have a virtual representation of it to see how it would work in reality. And that could be really, really big. So maybe some of those metaverse coins will actually be hot. I think most of those metaverse coins are basically gaming coins though, and I'm not really sure if they're tackling this field. I'm not really sure if there is a crypto project out there that's tackling this field, or would it work? Because I feel like a lot of this would actually operate on private chains as well, because it's going to be specific to one company. So like, although real life applications of the consumer metaverse are still developing, the industrial metaverse is ahead on the adoption curve. aligned with actual problems and business imperatives driven on by on-the-ground implementation. I do actually think blockchain is going to be a big part of this, but I think it'll be more private blockchain in this case than public blockchain. The games, I think, will be public blockchain, but like this, like industrial stuff will mostly be private blockchain. But this is another a way where the metaverse can be developed. And this particular method is like way ahead of the curve because industrial companies actually do need this much faster than like average gamers will actually adopt the metaverse and average people will actually decide to live in the metaverse. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.